And the Uber drivers, they were all super interested and wanted to talk to us about things and, filling them in. But we quickly realized that they don't know that there's tags and that there's licenses. They don't know anything about hunter safety or hunter education. They don't know that there's, slot limits and bag limits and all these other rules and regulations.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. This week, I'm going to introduce you to an important nonprofit organization called Howl For Wildlife, which provides science-based education to the public along with tools for taking action on hunting, fishing, and conservation issues. My special guest is VP and co-founder of Howl For Wildlife, John Stallone. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So John, I know you've spent decades of your life in the outdoors and learning all you can about land, wildlife, and the misconceptions that come from uneducated parties. And in my opinion, the misconceptions and the lack of education are two of the most dangerous threats we currently face as a country when it comes to protecting our wildlife and our resources. But before we really dig into all that, if you would just give our listeners a little more insight into your background growing up passionate about hunting and the outdoors.
Sure. Yeah. I've been a hunter and angler since angler probably since I could walk. But I started hunting at 5, which was pretty darn young.
That is.
I've been in the hunting industry, and I'm throwing on my air quotes right there that you can't see. For I think since 2001 was when I officially received money to promote and do things within the hunting industry. I've been a writer since probably about that time too. I've authored a couple of books, mainly in the hunting space. I don't consider myself a great angler, even though I grew up on Long Island and I did a lot of fishing in the bay there. Actually spent most of my summers fishing, and I did a lot more fishing than hunting when I was younger. But as I got older, got bit by the bow hunting bug, especially, and kind of went full bore with that. And now fishing is a thing for me that I love to do with my kids, and it's something that I like to do, as a pastime. But I don't pursue it with the same vigor that I do hunting.
Gotcha.
We do guide. I have a guide service here in Arizona.
Oh, cool.
And we guide. I have guides that work for me that are much better anglers than I am. That we take guys out bass fishing. Where I do guide for is we bow fish as well. I know.
Okay.
A lot of anglers don't consider that fishing, but we bow fish for carp and other invasive species.
Gotcha.
So we do that. We do that quite often. And that's one of the things that I love to partake in, because it takes, two things that I love doing. It kind of melts them together.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about bow fishing on the show in the past. I had Melissa Bachman on a while back, and we talked about that. And it definitely is the perfect marriage between the two sports for sure.
Yeah, I wish there was some more fish that we can bow fish for. There's certain waterways here that we can fish for catfish, and we have tilapia and other waterways. Mm-hmm. And those are the two species that we can, harvest and eat. And you can eat carp, of course, but it's a lot harder, a lot harder meal to come by because of how bony they are. The meat's real good, but they're super bony and really hard to prepare right. So,
gotcha. Well, very cool. So, and obviously, conservation is a huge passion of yours as well.
Hmm.
So I want to talk about that. Let's dial it back a little bit for listeners, and talk about kind of entry level conservation 101. Um, how do you explain it, or how does it work, for someone who's not super well versed in
Yeah.
conservation?
Well, I think um, a lot of people don't really understand what that word conservation means. And mainly because they're constantly bombarded by anti-hunting and anti-fishing groups that have co-opted the word conservation.
Mm,
Um, when what they're really doing, what they're really talking about is preservation. And preservation and conservation are two very different things. Conservation has a consumptive use component to it, and preservation is we want to sit back and look at it
mm,
and not touch it and not be involved in it. Where conservation is, it's active. You're actively involved and you're in the nature. You're doing things with nature, and yes, sometimes that means harvesting a deer or taking a trout or whatever. Um, that's one of the problems. The other thing is the system of how we do things in the United States. I think is lost on a lot of people, especially those people who are not within the hunting and fishing space.
mm,
They, uh, just as an example, this is some years ago. I was in a workout class, and the instructor said something about me being a bow hunter, blah 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 blah. Kind of sparked this conversation, and I addressed all these guys that were in the class, and I was in my 40s, and all these guys were in their 20s, and I'm like, so a show of hands, who here knows where the money comes from to manage wildlife? And you know, I gave them a couple different examples, and everybody
mm,
raised their hands. Everybody knew. And so I called him the first guy, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, my taxes." And everybody had a similar answer to that.
mm,
They didn't know that it's kind of that it's a user pay system, that the money comes from tag sales, comes from licenses, comes from Pittman Robertson and donations and all these things that I kind of like laid it out for them, that were just like floored. They didn't know, and that opened up my eyes to the fact that there's this lack of understanding out there that people just don't know. And then I found out as I went along, kind of down this road, that people even within the space, hunters and anglers, they didn't know this.
mm.
They didn't know that when I went and bought my license, it went back into what I was doing, some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And I had more and more realizations. Like we were just in Utah in February for the Hunting Conservation Expo that Mule Deer Foundation puts on, and each time we got into an Uber to go out to dinner or whatever, we conversed with with the Uber drivers, and the Uber drivers, they're all super interested and wanted to talk to us about things, and we filling them in, but we quickly realized that they don't know that there's tags and that there's licenses. They don't know anything about hunter safety or hunter education. They don't know that there's slot limits and bag limits and all these other rules and regulations. Their idea was, okay, you go to Walmart, you buy a gun, you buy a fishing pole, you go out to the woods, you go to the lake, whatever, and you just take what you want.
Mm.
There's all these little things that we as hunters and anglers take for granted. They don't understand. They don't know. So if they don't know these little things, like Dan Gates is an extraordinary gentleman, and you should have him on at some point. He put it to me like this one time, and this kind of stuck with me. He's like, could you imagine if I told you you had to pay $1,000 to get into Whole Foods, and you only had a 9% chance of coming out of there with food?
Wow.
So, like an elk tag is like $1,000, and there's only a 9% chance of filling that tag. People don't realize that, that even the ones that know that there's tags or there's licenses, that tag or that license represents a dead animal or dead fish, whatever. They don't register that. It's just an opportunity to go do that thing. And that, even on the high end, on the very high end, and some, like rifle hunts or whatever, that there's, 40% harvest success. So, it just kind of opened my eyes that there's a big disconnect. And I say my eyes, our eyes, not the whole group that was there, that there's a big disconnect to what hunting is. Hunting is human. It is a program that we are going to be releasing and launching here, and it is a way for us to engage with the non-hunting public and share these things that I'm talking about right now. Like, give them the knowledge, have them understand what it is to be a hunter and angler, the food, the camaraderie, what goes into it, the challenges, all the intrinsic values that make up what hunting is. Because right now, the information that they get, the vast majority of it is from propaganda from anti-hunting and fishing organizations. So, we want to give them the right information. We want to share with them the human values. Like I said, and that's why hunting is human. That's hence the name. Sorry.
Yeah, no, is the goal more so to educate people that aren't interested in hunting or fishing, or more so than trying to get people that aren't into it involved? Like,
no, it's not really a recruiting thing.
Yeah.
So, most hunters and anglers would agree we have competition. We don't really need any more. We want to steady, keep the numbers the same and keep that going on. We want to bring our family, our kids into it, and hopefully they'll pass it on to the grandkids and so on and so forth. It's not necessarily, hey, let's get everybody to get on this bandwagon. But when, Joe Smith sees a ballot box initiative that wants to get rid of mountain lion hunting, okay, because that's actually happening right now in Colorado, to get rid of mountain lion hunting. And the anti-hunters are pumping out, they don't eat the meat. Mountain lion is actually inedible. That they're endangered, and they put out all this information that is not true. It's categorically false, actually. But they put this information out, and Joe is exposed to it. He's just going to make a decision based on what he knows. Instead of if he was armed with the fact that, hey, I know John Stallone. He shared all this information with me. He's a good guy. Maybe I should look into this a little bit more before I cast my vote on something just based on, what I've heard or what I've seen in a meme, So
yeah,
that's the idea. The idea is let's put out the right information there and let people make informed decisions and understand what it is that we do and what conservation means and why we're able to go to wild places and see wild things. I posted a reel a while ago that did very well outside of the hunting and fishing space, because I talked about being able to go, access trails or go on a lake and see wild things in wild places. And those things are available to the person who doesn't buy a license, who doesn't, because of these people that are willing to pay to go, pay to play, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
Want to learn about fishing, hunting, and outdoor gear from fellow experienced outdoor women, as well as get inspired to try something new in the outdoors? Then subscribe to Adventurous, the only women's hunting and fishing magazine. Adventurous is a high-quality print magazine that receives rave reviews, and it also makes a great gift for other outdoor women and youth. Subscribe at Adventurous Magazine and use code WOMANANGLER for 15% off. You just answered my next question was going to be, how would you explain to someone, general public, like, why should I even care about this? Hunting's getting stripped away. I don't hunt, so how does
Right.
that actually affect me? And you kind of just summed it up right there. What do you think are some of the longer term implications? Like if we let our guard down and let these anti-hunting people, win these battles, what do you think some of the biggest long term implications would be?
Well, they seemingly um, are going after the low hanging fruit, and it's strategic for a lot of reasons. So they go after bear hunting, mountain lion hunting, stuff that most hunters don't really engage in, and they have that same mentality that you just brought up. Why should I care? Like, why do I care about this? I don't hunt there, or I don't hunt that. Why should I go? Why does this affect me? And the reason why it affects you, there's very clear lines. Okay, one, they're going for the low hanging fruit because politically it's the easiest for them. They know that there's hunters that don't really care about it. They know that it's easy to show cute and fuzzy bears on TV and sway emotion. But they also know that if they put more apex predators on the landscape, hunting is used as a tool. It's used as a tool to manage prey populations. And they know that if they put more apex predators on the landscape, that they don't have to, that the need for you, the hunter, is not as necessary. More bears means less deer. Less deer means less opportunity. Less opportunity means, and it's this like constant battle. They're trying to remove you by proxy. Okay. And if you look at the whole picture, okay, let me back up a little bit here. If you look at the whole picture, we hunters, anglers we have a seat at the conservation table. We have a seat at the what happens to wildlife table. Okay. And so if you picture this round table, okay, we have the largest piece of the pie not because we're the largest number. There's 5% of the United States that hunts and fish. Well, 5% that hunts. I don't remember there's 16 million hunters and I think 16 million anglers. I don't know what that makes. That's a much bigger portion of fishing in there. But we have the largest seat at the table. Okay. And I'm just going to talk hunting here because it's easier for me to use number because I know them easy. So 5% hunting, 5% anti-hunting. Okay. So there's 90% in between. That 90% of people have a smaller piece of the ethic or a smaller seat at that table than hunters and anglers do. And the reason why is because it's a huge user pay system, like we talked about a little bit earlier. And basically, what the anti-hunters are doing, they're trying to make that seat smaller. They're trying to make your voice smaller. And they do that by eliminating portions of hunting, bear hunting, lion hunting, so on and so forth. So they take those things away, so they take people away from that table. And by doing so, they reduce opportunity. And by reducing opportunity, they also reduce funding. And funding, let's say, Tennessee's Game and Fish got $100,000, just arbitrary number, got $100,000 this year and they get rid of bear hunting, or they get rid of something, and now that causes the deer population to go down. So the deer population goes down, which is the main driver of that $100,000. The tag sales and the license sales go down because they can't, withstand, or excuse me, they don't have enough to surplus to sell more than that. So now it's $80,000 full. Now there's only $80,000 to work on habitat and restoration projects and so on and so forth. So by default, now there's going to be even less game, because the Game and Fish Department can't put forth the same effort that they did in the past. So it's like death by a million cuts. And it's a hard thing for people to see if you don't sit there and like physically connect the dots for them. I have this conversation all the time. Like, why should a guy in Florida care about a girl who hunts bear in Washington? What's the connection? And it's those same things. Like, we're all interconnected. We're all interconnected. The same reason why we can go hunting and fishing out of state is the same reason why it affects every one of us in the space. Like, it's not just that, it's going to eventually end up on my door. That's a very important thing, but it literally starts working against you in some way, shape, or form the second that it happens. At a state level, at a federal level. So
yeah.
I don't want to bore everybody with them.
No, and that's a topic that's come up on the show in the past, is the kind of the disconnect of, like you just said, hey, I'm in Florida, why do I care what's going on over here? And the other thing that's come up before is kind of, there's all these different organizations out there kind of trying to do the same thing, yet there doesn't seem to be a ton of unity amongst all the different organizations fighting for the same thing.
Right.
And we could talk hunting and fishing and bring everybody together, and wonder if we could make a bigger impact if everybody kind of banded together, since we're all
we certainly could.
Yeah.
We certainly could. Well, I'll give you some specific examples to that, but just to clarify some. So a lot of these other organizations, there's hundreds of organizations, if you're thousands, if you're including state, but the large national organizations, those are all formed to do specific things. Like, I brought up the Mule Deer Foundation. So Mule Deer Foundation, they were designed to put more mule deer back on the mountain. They weren't formulated to fight for your rights to hunt. Trout Unlimited or whatever. It's the same thing. They're a critter. We call them critter orgs. They're designed and formulated to do just that. Make better habitat, or ensure that there's more trout or more bears or more whatever. You plug and play the species. There's probably an organization for it.
Right.
They were not organized to have the fight or be involved in the fight against people that are trying to take away the abilities to do that. So that's one of the issues. As far as having power, right? Our voice having power and being effective. So Howl For Wildlife specifically, and since we've been around, we've been, and I don't know exact number right now, but I'm just going to give you a close number. It's in the upper 90%. We've been able to progress or win whatever action item that we've been involved in. Okay.
Very cool.
Which is cool, right? This is what the reason why I bring that up is we've been able to do that with thousands of people. Okay. When we put up an action item, okay, we have 50 some odd thousand members of Howl For Wildlife. 2,000, 3,000, sometimes 5,000 people will get involved in that action item, you know, and we've been able to win or progress with, like I said, 2 to 5,000 people. Could you imagine if all 16 million hunters would get involved in something? We'd never lose a thing in hunting again.
No.
Could you imagine the next time that we had a thing come, like we were working on this salmon thing in California, if all 60 million anglers got involved in that issue? We would never lose. We would have the strongest, biggest voice in all of, conservation on any side of it.
Absolutely.
So to me, getting involved and having your voice heard on things is key. Like I can't stress it enough. Like it keeps going back to what we were just talking about. Why should I care thing? We put up an action, and we always get new people on board because it's an action that they're passionate about. Saving the snipe, whatever. And they're passionate about that, so they jump on board. But then the next thing comes up, and those people fall off. It's getting people to understand that, hey, no, all of this matters, whether you partake in this action or not, or I should say action, whether you partake in this type of hunting or this type of fishing or with this species or not. It's all important,
right?
And that's a very hard thing to do. It's like herding kittens.
Well, yeah, and it's everyone's busy with their own lives, and to have to take time out and do whatever is required with that particular action to help. It's hard to motivate people to take time to do that when they don't see it directly affecting them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But with that said, that exact idea that you just put out there that people are busy, so on and so forth. I don't accept that. Like, I don't accept that as an excuse, because I really don't know anybody who's busier than I am. I'm vice president of Howl For Wildlife. I produce one show a year for the last 18 years of my podcast. I used to have a TV show. I'm a writer. I have a construction company, 3 kids. I guide. I have all these things going on. I really just don't sleep anymore. But it only takes, to use Howl For Wildlife's tools, okay? On the very, if you wanted to do a deep dive and learn everything about that subject, it would take you, 10 minutes to read through that whole subject. But if you went in there and just skimmed through it, and were like, okay, cool, I could get on board with this, and you put your name and your email address in there and you hit send, it takes like a minute,
Yeah.
minute and 30 seconds. And, it's not like we have a new action every day. I kind of came up with a number that it probably would take you about 6-7 minutes a month out of your life to be involved. That's not a whole lot of time.
No.
If you're telling me that you're too busy, you can't figure out 6 or 7 minutes in a whole month.
Stop.
You got some organizational skill problems.
Stop scrolling social media.
Exactly. I know. I look at my phone. I got 6 hours of garbage time spent. But
yeah. I just heard a podcast I'm in the middle of listening to right now, but they said the guest said the research shows that I guess scrolling social media or your phones is taking away 20 years of people's lives.
Oh yeah, I believe it. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I agree with you. You've got a very well laid out website. Makes it very easy. You can just go to howlforwildlife.org, click on Take Action at the top. You can see the issues. And then it looks like there's a rewards program of some sort to kind of, I guess, encourage people to.
Yeah, we have rewards. We're the only organization, at least that I know of, that offers a free membership. Also,
Mm.
we have paid memberships. We have different ways to get involved. Just our standard membership, and then we have partnerships with like Go Hunt and American Bear Foundation and Pope and Young, where it's like a partnership. You get both memberships with for the price of one type situation. So there's a lot of cool ways to financially get involved. But if you don't want to make that leap, we offered a free one. And we didn't want to tell people, hey, you can't get involved in hunting and fishing because you don't want to give Howl For Wildlife $30. Financially, it's probably been to our detriment because a lot of people go to that free one. But at the same time, it's the army that we're building that's making the difference. So, I encourage people, if you're not ready to, make a financial decision or you physically can't, go become a free member. What does it take?
Yeah.
Then you'll get our email alerts saying, hey, this is going on in this place. Please get involved. And then, like I said, a couple minutes out of your life, a month, and you'll do more for hunting and fishing than you've ever done in your life. So
absolutely. We'll put a link to the website in the show notes, make it really easy for anybody listening to just click on that, go there, sign up, and help support these important issues. And you can also make a donation on there if you want to. Anything else you got coming up? I know you've got like you mentioned, the Hunting is Human in the works. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, part of what we're doing is we're trying to change the way we react to anti-hunting and anti-fishing stuff. So we're always like playing defense. We're all of it. We're never on the offense. And I'm not saying we want to go on the offense and just start suing the hell out of people like they do. But we want to put together like a war chest that has funding in place. So when things arise, whatever state or whatever issue it is, we already have a leg up in fighting that. Because that's what the anti-hunting and anti-fishing people do. And they're constantly fundraising nationally, internationally for their fight for whatever they want to do. And they use that money to pump propaganda into favorable markets, and that's how they win. So we, in order for us to stay on pace with that, we need to kind of adopt. I don't want to lie to people. I don't want to sell a bag of goods that I don't want to be a snake oil salesman like they do. But we'd like to be ready, more ready. And so that's one of the other things that we're working on. So,
gotcha. Well, very cool. This was a very enlightening conversation for me, so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and perspective, especially preservation versus conservation. I never really, took the time to think about them being two separate things. So appreciate everything that you're doing with Howl For Wildlife. And again, I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Christiana Hilberg from Media Muse. She's the one who connected us. I got to meet her at the Outdoor Media Summit. So thank you to her for that. And just great conversation. Thanks for taking some time to be on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.